Put your hands together for ACHG Production.
We're ready.
Yeah.
We're ready. Good afternoon, ACHG Production. Reaching for the top.
So good afternoon and welcome to the AC Fun Time Superstar. My name is AC and invite you to stay tuned, take a trip with us as we take you downtown to the Burke High School as we continue the celebration with the MLK Picture Awards. Don't you forget, please do like us on Facebook. It's the ACHG Fun Time Superstars. And also please do subscribe to YouTube for the AC TV. AC Funtime TV, excuse me. And don't forget, every Friday night, tune us in. Comcast C2, every Saturday morning at 9:30, Friday night, 12:30. In the meantime, we're going downtown and we're going to have some fun. We're going to take it away.
That because of hate, because of prejudice, because of ignorance, they lost their lives. When Dr. King heard about it, he wrote one of his famous quotes. He says, sometimes cowardness asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? But then conscience asks the question, is it right? There comes a time when one must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but because conscience will tell you, your conscience will tell you that it is right. That sums every one of you up tonight. Controversy, you handle it. You humble yourself, you were there. For the people who needed you, whether they were homeless, whether they were middle class, and yes, some of us in this country and in the world who are blessed to be rich, they need help too. Because if they didn't, we wouldn't have nobody in this world would be homeless. This sums you up tonight. In closing, in Columbia, we are about the people's business. It can't all be about ethnic reforms. It has to be about domestic violence. It has to be about jobs. It has to be about education. Ethnic reform will take care of itself. And I warn you, watch the people who preach and teach ethnic reform like that's all God sent them here for. Watch the messenger. Watch the messenger. The whole trick. Watch it. You see, when you come back, and you know anything about public service, you can't step across domestic violence and ignore it. You can't step across gun violence and don't say anything. Right. You cannot step across the homeless situation and knowing the population of the homeless situation, which includes homeless veterans, which includes children who are black, white, Jewish, I bet them all. This is what you're about. You're not letting us forget this. And this was Dr. King's legacy as to be inclusive. We have to remember that as a people. The pastors, the community activists, the educators, the entrepreneurs, the local government people. I don't know why God sent you, but we all need to pause sometimes, and whether you think you deserve it or not, we have to pause and say thank you. That's what his legacy was all about. And you stand for their murderers. You stand in line to say, this was wrong, but we're going to live the legacy out and never, ever forget. But we got to do more than what we're doing, my brothers and sisters.
Where Dr. Johnson is our school director. This evening, along with my classmates, we will perform a tribute to our African American hero. We would like to acknowledge our teachers who had great expectations for us. First, we will hear Judgment Christ.
Reverend Jackson was a mentee of Dr. King. No doubt he was inspired by his legacy to speak this affirmation to young lives. Every class in CDA recites this affirmation every morning before we begin our day.
I will take the opportunity to learn all that I can about life. I will help my school and community by exercising discipline and by becoming a positive thinker. I will sacrifice something I want of today so that I can satisfy the most of my needs of tomorrow. I will learn the secret of success and practice them daily. I must be motivated to accept responsibility because nobody will save us for us but us.
Next, we will hear Imani Smith, who wrote about Dr. King.
Dr. Martin Luther King was a good man. He taught civil rights with a Bible in his hand. He increased peace, won a Nobel Peace Prize. For this, he made things better for you and I. In 1955, he led a march because Rosa Parks started a boycott. He had a dream that blacks and whites would get together for a better life. This is why we have to celebrate. To a man who's strong and truly great. So as we look into each other's eyes, have self-respect and a lot of black pride. Thank you, Dr. King, for all you have done. Now people on earth can come together as one. We don't need to criticize on our color and shape because we learn skills from a man who was wise and truly great. We don't need to think about each other's national feuds. We don't need to judge on each other's grades. Dr. King was a great husband, father, friend, and brother. I know that he is happy now, that he is watching us from heaven. Martin Luther King will stay in our hearts forever. Let's stop the violence and hatred, because it's now or never.
Today, we will now learn all about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King led a large march in Washington, D.C. Over 200,000 white and black people joined the march. Dr. King gave a powerful speech. I have a dream.
I have a dream today that one day little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers.
I have a dream today. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character.
I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up to live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal.
Let us not walk in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friends, that in spite of the difficulties and frustrations of the moment, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
When we let freedom reign, when we let it rain from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Dr. King called on everyone in our country to work so people of all races could be free.
Young Martin was an excellent student in school. He skipped grades in both elementary school and high school. He enjoyed reading books, singing, riding a bicycle, and playing football and baseball. Martin entered Morehouse College in Atlanta, Georgia when he was only 15 years old.
Martin experienced racism early in life. He decided to do something to make the world a fairer place. After graduating college and getting married, Dr. King became a minister and moved to Alabama.
In the 1950s, Dr. King became active in the movement for civil rights and racial equality. He participated in the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott and many other peaceful demonstrations that protested the unfair treatment of African Americans. He won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1964.
We must forever conduct our struggle on a high plane of dignity and discipline. We must not allow our creative protest to degenerate into physical violence. Again and again, we must rise to the majestic heights of meeting physical force with soul force. Dr. King was assassinated on April 4th, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee. Commemorating the life of a tremendously important leader, we celebrate Martin Luther King Day every year in January.
Let us not seek to satisfy our thirst for freedom by drinking from the cup of bitterness of hatred. Freedom isn't free. Freedom isn't free. You gotta pay the price. You gotta sacrifice for your liberty.
Charleston Development Academy Public Charter School under the leadership of Dr. Sean Dunn. And I will be reciting a monologue paying tribute to Coretta Scott King. I am Coretta Scott King, the wife of civil rights leader Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I gained an international reputation as an advocate for civil rights, nonviolence, international peace, and equal rights for women. The mother of 4 precious children, Martin, Dexter, Yolanda, and Bernice. Oh, enough said about me. Now to the matter at hand. We are all tied up in a single garment of destiny. I can't be what I ought to be until you are allowed to be what you ought to be. We have a lot more work to do in common struggle. I say common struggle because I believe all forms of bigotry and discrimination are equally wrong and should be opposed by the right-thinking Americans everywhere. Segregation was wrong when they forced it by white people, and I believe it is still wrong when they requested it by black people. The more visible signs of protest are gone, but there is a realization that the tactics of the late 60s are not sufficient to meet the challenges of today. Struggle is never an ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it, you win it in every different way. There is a spirit, a need, and a man at the beginning of every great human event. Every one of these things must be right in that particular moment of history, or nothing really happens. I am fulfilled in what I do. I never thought a lot about money or fine clothes, the finer things in life that make you happy. My concept of happiness is to be filled in a spiritual sense. How marvelous is it that we have gathered together to pay tribute and give honor to those who have fought and gave their lives for equality for all mankind. Nevertheless, in the morning, will words become deeds that meet needs? Now, in the words of my beloved husband, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We must learn to stick together as brothers or perish together as fools. That's why I have decided to stick with love. Love! Oh, love. I am Coretta Scott King. Thank you.
My topic is economic justice is the new civil rights movement. And I would like to start with a quote, two quotes from Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. You can use your powerful economic resources to wipe poverty from the face of the earth. God never intended for one group of people to live superfluous and inordinate wealth, while others live in abject, deadly poverty. God intends for all of his children to have basic necessities of life. He has left in his universe enough and to spare for that purpose. So I call upon you to bridge the gulf between abject poverty and superfluous wealth. Another quote. There is nothing new about poverty. What is new is that we now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty. The real question is whether we have the will. This weekend marks the time of the year when we remember and we reflect on the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. During this time of year, we tend to recount the stories of the brave young men and women who paid the price, some of them, like Dr. King, the ultimate price for our freedom. The generations of today and tomorrow have a debt that we owe them and those that came before them. The only way to repay that debt is to continue the struggle. The struggle for human rights and civil rights is defined by the UN not only in the criminality of physical violence, but also in socio-economic terms that measure educational achievements, infant mortality rates, and unemployment rates. If we look here in America, we'll see, if we look at the comparable unemployment rates, the dropout rates, the infant mortality rates, we can see that the struggle still continues. The civil and human rights struggle of the 50s and 60s was part of a worldwide movement. In Africa, the struggle was for independence from European powers of France and England. What their aim was independence. What they accomplished was independence and sovereignty for their African people, and they created independent African nations. Likewise, here in America, our struggle, our movement, the aims was unabridged access to educational and economic, and to unabridged access to the political process. The movement was accomplished with the Civil Rights Act and the Voting Rights Act. The movement made it possible so that today here in America we have experts in every major field of endeavor: finance, politics, science, entertainment. The movement made it possible so that we as a community could produce scores of millionaires, elected officials, and professionals. So if we have a debt to pay, if we have to give something back, and if our debt to pay is a continuous struggle, what is going to be our accomplishment? I submit to you that the next level for our movement is in the area of economic development. That black entrepreneurs, politicians, and professionals must play a critical role in the planning and organizing and implementation stages. The aim of this next level of the movement is the creation of institutions and programs that create wealth in our community in the form of investments, real estate development, business development, and strategic planning centered around capitalizing on the economic opportunities that present itself to us in Charleston today. The great accomplishment of this generation should be the establishment of economic engines powerful enough to sustain our community independently through job creation and business creation. How do we move about accomplishing these aims? We do so by looking at the community around us and tapping into the economic engines that exist. Here in Charleston, the economic engines are the tourism industry, generating $6 billion. The maritime industry, generating $23 billion industry. The real estate and construction industry, generating about $5 billion for our local economy. The medical industrial complex at $3 billion. The military industrial complex at another $3 billion. Our aim in the African American community has to be to tap into these industries through investment, development of new businesses, and the planning and implementation of economic development initiatives designed to bring those dollars into our community. Here in Charleston, we have a unique opportunity to accomplish the aim of tapping into these 5 economic engines, driving our local economy due to the favorable political environment that we find ourselves in. Nowhere else in the state, and I live in Greenville, so I know, is there such a concentration of black political power as represented by elected leadership. In state government, Charleston black communities have 7 state elected officials that represent its interests. We have 2 state senators, 5 state representatives. In local government, the Charleston region is in the grips of black political power, even if sometimes we fail to use it. I give you the city of Charleston, the city of North Charleston, and the county of Charleston, where its administrations could not move forward without the consent of the African American representatives. Until as recent as last week, we held the chairmanship of county council because, again, we represented the balance of power and the agenda could not move forward without our consent. The votes of elected officials representing the African American communities in the Charleston region have considerable leverage that we could use to advance our economic agenda. If we use this political leverage to create opportunities within the 5 engines, I'm going to go through each engine and talk about some examples, some concrete examples. If we look in the tourism industry, we could look at this, use our political power to increase the allocations to the African American niche through accommodations, grant funding, or through small business incentive programming. We could push local and state governments to fund a study measuring the economic impact of this niche to serve as any basis of any planning initiatives designed to grow the African American tourism industry. Finally, we could promise a 24 minority participation goal. They not only met that goal, but they surpassed it. Locally, here in the city of Charleston, with the Gilliard Auditorium and the former gym, the Arthur Christopher Gym, and really every major capital improvement project that has came on since the current council has been in place has pushed for minority participation. On the Gilliard example, for an example, an article came out in the Post and Courier. They not only met that goal, they surpassed that goal, but they would not have been able to do that without unity, without understanding their political power and putting it into place. The medical and military industrial complex is also providing our opportunity to advance our economic agenda. The primary aim of our struggle for human and civil rights. The medical industry here in Charleston is anchored by MUSC, that according to studies generates $1.9 billion impact on the local economy. Recently, current state senator Marlon Kempton held a forum on their new construction projects. They had hundreds of dollars worth of development happening there, and he moved forward to understand his power and to leverage his power, political power, to make sure that African American contractors had opportunities on that project. We need to follow those examples and have more of these type of events and this type of push for our economic agenda. The entrepreneurs, politicians, and the professionals are the talented tent that W. Du Bois spoke of when he defined that special group from our community who have been educated and trained in human endeavors necessary for effective nation and community building. It will be you who provide our community with the skills and expertise in the areas of planning, finance, special event planning, administration, communications, construction, insurance, procurement, infrastructure, so that together we can plan and develop and implement a strategy that would help us accomplish our aim of advancing our economic agenda. It is you who must take on this role as the modern-day freedom fighter. We must approach this mission with as much fervor and as much commitment as those who came before us. They struggled, and they committed themselves in the way that we must commit ourselves today. We are the current freedom fighters. What will history write of us? I'm going to tell you what history will write of us. History will say that our aim was advancing our economic agenda. It will say that we accomplished building a self-sustainable, a self-reliant, a self-determined community. That will be our legacy. That is what King died for, that is what he fought for, and that is where we need to be at today with our struggle. Thank you for allowing me to come before you and share it.
You're going to send me to be a union organizer again. Because I'm proud of that. And ain't no one person ever going to make me look back and down on unions, because union is a part of American history. And if you want to separate it, that's like taking a Corvette and separate from apple pie and a glass of cold milk. Ain't going to happen. I am still black. I am still proud. I want you to be white and proud, Jewish and proud. Be proud of your culture and who you are. Be proud to stand up and talk about racism, talk about prejudice, talk about the things that are wrong in America, because when we can talk about it, then and only then you're going to find a solution. That's Dr. King's legacy. That's what he paid the ultimate price for. And just like his wife stood on this stage in 2004, and I'll never forget it. This is something all of Berkeley alumni should be proud of. That the late Coretta Scott King, in 2004, visited this great institution. And you ought to carry that on to your life, because her message that night, and it still rings to this day, ladies and gentlemen, take care of the children by any means necessary. God bless you.